All right, today we're going to dive right into one of the most intense and personal stories in the book of Genesis. We're going to walk through chapter 16, verse by verse, and create a kind of mental movie that will really lock the story of Hagar into your memory and make it impossible to forget.
So, here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll see a desperate plan born from a promise that feels broken. Then, we'll watch as that plan causes a family to explode. After that, we witness an incredible encounter out in the wilderness. And finally, it all wraps up with a promise and a son. Let's get into it.
Our story kicks off 10 long years after Abram got this huge promise from God about having a son. Can you imagine the waiting? The silence has become just unbearable. And it's in that silence that a very human, very flawed plan starts to take shape. Okay, verse 1. Let's set the scene. The problem is laid out right there. In the first line, Sarai can't have children. Picture their main tent. It's big, it's wealthy, but it's silent. It's empty. And then the camera, so to speak, pans over to another woman, Hagar. And the text points out two things about her. She's a servant and she's Egyptian. She's an outsider. But she's about to be pushed to the very center of this story. So in verse 2, Sarai decides she's had enough of waiting. She steps up and says, look, God has obviously closed the door for me, so here's the plan. You take my maid Hagar and have a child through her. It was a cultural custom, but still, just imagine the tension in that tent as she says this. And Abram, he doesn't protest. He just listens and agrees. The weight of that decision is just hanging in the air. Verse 3, the plan moves forward. And again, the Bible makes a point of telling us how long it's been. A full decade of waiting in this promised land with no promised son. Now picture this. Sarai formally takes Hagar by the hand and literally gives her to Abram. This isn't a moment of romance. It's a legal transaction, born out of pure desperation. And verse 4, what do you know? The plan works. Immediately, Hagar gets pregnant. And it's in that exact same moment that everything goes sour. For the first time, Hagar, the servant, has something Sarai, the mistress, doesn't. And you can just picture the change. A subtle shift in her posture, a new look in her eyes as she glances at Sarai. It's a look of pride, maybe even contempt. And for Sarai, that look is like a knife to the heart. And yeah, that one look, that's the spark that lights the fuse. The plan that was supposed to build a family is now about to blow it apart. The tension is about to explode. Verse 5. Sarai just loses it. She completely turns on Abram, filled with rage. This is your fault, she screams. Now get this. She's blaming him for the consequences of the plan she came up with. Picture her face just filled with fury, pointing that accusing finger right at Abram, saying, let God judge between us. And Abram's response in verse 6? Wow, he just checks out. He completely washes his hands of the situation. He basically tells Sarai, look, she's your maid. Do whatever you want to her. And Sarai does. The Bible says she dealt harshly with Hagar, a phrase that implies serious mistreatment. It gets so bad that Hagar, pregnant and alone, runs. Just picture her, a single figure escaping into the vast, brutal emptiness of the desert. So everything has fallen apart. Hagar has hit rock bottom. She's been rejected, abused, and is now totally alone in the wilderness. And it's right here, in this moment of absolute human failure, that the story makes a dramatic pivot to a divine encounter. Verse 7, the angel of the Lord finds her. Think about that word. He sought her out. And where does he find her? At a spring of water, a source of life right in the middle of a place of death. Just see that image. Hagar, totally hopeless, huddled by this little pool of water, when suddenly a bright, calming presence is there with her. Verse 8. And then he speaks. He calls her by her name, Hagar. He acknowledges her situation, Sarai's maid. He sees her for who she is, and then he asks two huge questions. Where have you come from, and where are you going? And Hagar's answer is just heartbreaking. I'm running away. She knows exactly where she's from, but she has absolutely no idea where she's going. Verse 9. And the angel's first command is a total gut punch. Go back. Go back to the abuse. Go back to the misery. Can you just imagine Hagar's face in that moment? The shock, the confusion. It must have sounded like the cruelest thing she could possibly hear. But right after that incredibly difficult command comes an absolutely staggering promise. He says, I will multiply your descendants. Now, wait a minute. That sounds really familiar, doesn't it? It's basically the same promise God gave to Abram. In this moment, Hagar, the Egyptian slave, is being treated like a matriarch, the mother of a great nation. Just picture the desert sand behind her, shimmering into a sky packed with stars.
Verse 11. Then the promise gets intensely personal. The angel tells her to name her son Ishmael, and the meaning of that name is everything. It literally means God hears. Her cries in the desert, her pain, her affliction, it was all heard. Imagine the angel gesturing toward her, a hand of light hovering over her womb, as he speaks this promise directly to her and her son.
Verse 12 gives us a prophecy about Ishmael, and it's complicated. He'll be a wild man, fierce, free, a man of the desert, but also a man of conflict. It's this powerful image of an independent warrior who can't be tamed, living life on his own terms. Verse 13. And this is the absolute heart of the entire story. After all this, Hagar speaks. And what does she do? She gives God a name. This is incredible. She is the very first person in the Bible to ever do this. And the name she chooses is El Roy. It means, you are the God who sees me. In her moment of being completely invisible to the world, she was seen by God. Picture her face changing from despair to pure awe as she looks up.
Verse 14, this encounter was so powerful, it didn't just change Hagar, it changed the place itself. The well is renamed Bir Lahai, which means the well of the living one who sees me. That little spring in the desert becomes a permanent monument to this moment. You can just imagine it glowing with a soft light. So armed with this incredible promise and the knowledge that she is seen by God, Hagar does the impossible. She obeys. She goes back. And the story comes full circle. Verse 15, Hagar returns and she gives birth to her son. And Abram, who must have heard this whole incredible story from her, does exactly as the angel commanded. He names the boy Ishmael. God hears. Picture that final scene. Hagar holding her son, not with a look of contempt, but with the quiet dignity of a mother who has met God. Verse 16, and the chapter closes with one last little detail that just anchors the whole story in reality. Abram was 86 years old. That's not just a random fact, it's a timestamp. It makes this epic, emotional drama feel concrete and real. It happened. So, the story of Hagar, the outcast servant, ends with her becoming the one who saw God, and, more importantly, was seen by him. And it leaves us with this question that echoes all the way from that desert spring into our lives today. What does it mean for us, in our own wilderness moments, in our lowest points, to be truly seen?